And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
I am a real American.
Good morning, everybody. It's CSAP, your Common Sense American Patriot, with your Common Sense Politics show. Today, I am going to go over some stuff that I went over yesterday and continue on with what we did. I just wanted to talk about my intro really quick. You know, I went through about 3 or 4 different intros I was trying to do, but JFK's speech is the one that hits home with me the most, and I want everybody to really hear that. I want them to hear it on a daily basis, because that is definitely what is gone with our country right now. It's what JFK says, what can we do for our country, not what our country can do for us. And that's the complete script that is flipped right now, and it's all about free, free, free. What can we get from the government? And it should be the complete opposite. The government should be as small as possible, and we, the free people, should be controlling the country, not having government giving out free things. So I just want to talk about my intro really quick. Now I want to dig into things. The 3 topics I really want to go over today are, I want to talk about the root problems of these mass shootings. What is really the root problem of it? Why are these happening? What is the cause of it? Because at the end of the day, it's not the guns. Guns have been with our country, our culture, since the day the Pilgrims landed. There's been guns since day one in this country. Mass murders has really been just a newer trend. I've looked at murders across the board with homicide rates due to guns, and they have actually stayed relatively the same. Just kind of mass shootings has kind of gone up. The mass shootings that we know of as of today, ever since Columbine. But what is the root cause of this? What is causing it? Because like I said, we've had guns in our culture, in our country, since the dawn of this country, since it was first steps landed here from the Pilgrims and the settlers that came here, and the first time in this country. So the 3 things that I really want to talk about is the breakdown of the family culture and kind of our American culture. What has led to this? I believe that's a big part of it. The other problem is mental health. Mental health in this country needs to really be addressed. And then the last thing I want to touch base on is everybody's complaining about the red flag laws, just like I am. I do not believe in the red flag laws at all. I believe in innocence before proven guilty, not guilty and then prove yourself innocent. But as a conservative, what can we do to change that? Okay, obviously something's going to have to change here in this country, or it's going to get worse, and these laws are going to continue to go. So if we don't present any answers to these problems, then the red flag laws are going to go through. And when we talk about bipartisan agreements, red flag law to me is not a bipartisan agreement. That is giving Democrats what they want, and that is taking our guns and having to fight to get our own property back. You gotta understand that that's property rights, and that's really what the foundation of our Constitution is built on, is property rights. And that's our property. Guns are our property. If we buy it, we own it. It's our property. And now a judge can sign off, come in, and take our property without us even, again, guilty before proven guilty, and then we have to prove ourselves innocent instead of innocent proven guilty. I get it. I understand why they're doing it, obviously. Just like when Trump banned the bump stocks, I didn't like that either. But again, I understand why he did it due to the horrendous Las Vegas shooting. And I am not a tinfoil guy, and I'm going to keep my tinfoil hat off for this statement. But that one still is a little fishy to me. There's no motive. They have no reason. This was very well executed and planned out. There's still some missing answers, if you ask me, on that shooting. But I am not a conspiracy guy. I do not believe that the 9/11 buildings were blown up by the government or these other crazy Q. I'm not a Q guy. Sorry if you believe in Q. I'm not that guy. I'm not that conspiracy guy. But again, when we're talking about the shootings, we've got to come up with solid solutions and true bipartisan solutions, and I'm going to go over that with you today. So let's start off with my first one. the first root cause of why I believe these things are happening in our society. What is going on? Why are we having these mass shootings and murders to begin with? And I'm going to start out right here. So let's go to this. I believe, we're going to start here. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead here. But I believe it is the breakdown of our family values. So right here, a media culture centered on fame and celebrity. I believe that's a huge thing. We have all these people are always talking about Instagram stars and the Kardashians. I mean, we put these famous people above all else. We should be putting doctors and scientists and educated people up front. We should be idolizing those people, not sports stars and celebrities and the Kardashians and Cardi B. And I mean, what have they done? I mean, and I'm not knocking them. That's what capitalism is all about. They've done what they've done to become rich and famous. I have no knock on their capitalism part, but I mean, just the culture that we have. I mean, people idolize these people. I mean, look at their fan base. It's never ending. I mean, people. It's funny. I find the Kardashians is hilarious to me. But I mean, how many millions of people sit there and watch their life? People sit there and watch their life. That's exactly what their show is about, is just watching their life and what they do in their life. What is that? Why are we not like idolizing doctors and scientists and people who are inventing things? And you know what I mean? We're just watching people who are rich and famous for being rich and famous. I mean, that's kind of what's funny about the Kardashians, is they're really just rich and famous, not because they really did anything. It's because they marketed themselves as being rich and famous, and that's really how they got there. I mean, they've done other things, right, Kim? You're the one that really helped it out. But they've done other things, obviously, to get rich and famous. But that's essentially what they've done. They've just created their whole wealth on being rich and famous and growing it from there. So it's kind of silly that we idolize that. So another topic here too is it's almost as we can't experience things directly anymore. That's the internet. The internet has totally done that. The internet, we don't, it's all social media. It's through this. I mean, I go to a lot of local events and talk with people and meet people and shake hands and talk with a lot of people. But the breakdown of society is a huge one. And I want to show you a point. Here's a picture of, let me get it here. Hang on one second. Picture here. So this is allegedly of the shooter here, of the El Paso shooter on his LinkedIn. Okay, so I want to just read this here. His summary: I'm not really motivated to do anything more than what's necessary to get by. That's millennials pretty much millennials in a nutshell. The work ethic, I think, in America is completely gone. Everybody believes that they should just be given something for free, and that goes back to my opening of the government is not here to give you stuff. You need to work for what you want in life. Getting there, like, okay, even the Kardashians, they worked their asses off. Granted, they did it by just pretty much promoting their marketing of they're famous and they're rich and watch me, but they literally worked their asses off. They didn't get there by just hoping. They got out there and worked. So that's a big thing that needs to change in our culture too, that hard work pays off. I don't know how that got lost in translation somewhere through the years and generations, but hard work, you don't get there by not working hard. So working in general sucks, but I guess a career in software development suits me well. I spend about 8 hours every day on the computer, so that counts towards technology experience, I guess. There you have it. This kid spent, if this is his true LinkedIn, and this came out kind of right away. I've got this screenshot kind of right after it happened, so it may have been edited, may have not, but that sounds pretty genuine if you ask me. But if you look at a lot of these mass shooters, they were kids. That's 8 hours on the computer every day. Like, go out and socialize, ride a bike, go do something, get out of the house. Like, you need to do something else. But that's what's going on with these kids. They don't know how to socialize. They're just behind a computer. I have 3 young kids, and it's crazy. When I was a kid, the whole block was out playing with each other. We got some neighbor kids, and they play together. But for the most part, most of these kids just sit and play games. I try to regulate that to the max with my kids. I've pretty much cut video games completely out of their life because it's just not good. You just kind of see it and they get like, they don't ever move from there. So that's a big thing. Like this kid, 8 hours a day on a computer, and you don't like to work, go out, work, get a job, socialize. It probably would have changed a lot of things in this guy's mentality. I mean, when you just sit behind a computer all day and you probably like on the internet, reading rhetoric and getting just, I mean, go out and socialize, meet people. Guess what? Hispanics aren't bad people. Illegal immigration is bad, but Hispanics are not bad people. I mean, this is just craziness. That's why people need to get out and actually interact with one another. So let's go back to another point here, and this is it's a segue into one of the next parts: deteriorate relationships between men and women. So I'm going to touch base on this a little bit more, but it was just another piece in this article that I have, and I'll have it in the show notes down at the end of my YouTube video. Deteriorating relationships. There's so much statistical information and data that shows that just the breakdown between relationships, marriages, kids being, all these kids without a father figure or a mother figure. It's just, the stats are just overwhelming bad that we've become a very selfish culture that we look after me and me only. And I get it. I'm a selfish person. I think every person, I think that's human nature. But you have to realize you have your kids involved. And when you really think of things, like when I look back on my parents, and I had a terrible, terrible childhood. I mean, if you could imagine it happened, it probably happened. Just a horrific childhood. And I look back on that and I just absolutely despise my parents. And look at that. Every single man, woman, anybody out there, when you look at your parents, you really look at that. So why are you going to do that to your kids? So I try to be very, very, very cautious of that myself, on how much my parents affected my life and how I do not want to negatively impact my kids by my selfish tendencies, just like my parents did. So moving on. So again, I want to kind of keep going on the technology thing, and I ran into this article here, and this was a great point that when I was reading it, technology is ruining humanity. I thought that was a great statement. And the guy goes on in this article who wrote this piece that he didn't say technology is ruining the world, it's ruining humanity. And that is the truth, and that stuck with me when I was reading this article here. Because it's true, technology has made the world actually great. We're living longer. I love my cell phone. I love doing this. I love talking to you. I love social media. I love the internet. I love everything about technology. There's nothing I don't like about technology. However, I lied. I'll take that back. I cannot stand the self-checkout things, going to McDonald's, and I'm telling you, Democrats, that $15 an hour is what causes that. I despise going to the McDonald's and you can't even talk to a cashier. You have to order it off one of those silly little self-checkout things, and I hate it. I despise it. I want to talk to a 16-year-old whose first job is at McDonald's and they hate their job, but I'd rather that person than the self-checkout machine. I digress. But anyhow, technology is ruining humanity, and I thought that was a great thing. And it goes back to just people are not talking with each other. They're not getting out in society. They're not meeting each other. They're just seeing things on the internet or getting their own mindset and things and not speaking with people. Like I said, again, back to the El Paso shooter, Hispanics are not bad people. Hispanics are actually a very conservative culture if you really think about it. So it's kind of funny. This kid was allegedly a Trump supporter and a conservative person. Hispanics are naturally a conservative, very conservative culture. If you really go to Mexico and learn their culture in Mexico, they're a very conservative culture. Now, of course, when they cross the border, they convert a little bit and they get a little bit more they lean a little bit more liberal. And that's because obviously getting into this country, there's a lot of restrictions. So that probably rubs them wrong. On top of the media propaganda machine is just terrible and they're lied to. Like the Democrats really actually like them. They're just pandering to them for the votes. Just like the inner cities. Like they all talk about the inner cities and how they want to help inner cities, and the black community, except for once the election's over, they don't mention them ever again. I mean, it's sickening. All politicians need to really step up the game and quit just using talking points. And you need to really actually help out these communities and stop talking about it. So the next thing is now I want to get more into the family breakdown of things. And here we go with this article here. The uncomfortable truths about family breakdowns. Children without married parents miss more than just income. And that's the truth. I mean, that's the absolute truth. I kind of had a broken home. I had a stepdad, but he didn't beat me, physically beat me, wasn't there for me. So it was kind of weird. Like, even though he was kind of there but wasn't there, as my male adult figure that I looked up to, it was my grandfather and my uncle. But they weren't there living with me day to day. I had my stepdad that was kind of sort of there. But I've done lots of counseling through the years, just to talk about things and get things figured out. But that piece of me is missing. I didn't have that figure, so I can personally relate to this and attest to it. That not having a true father figure changed things. It messed some things up growing up. So moving on. It is an uncomfortable truth that children of divorce and children with unmarried parents tend to do much worse in life than children of two-parent families. I'll leave aside the sensitive issue of children of same-sex marriage because these haven't existed in a non-stigmatized atmosphere long enough to produce measurable results. So that's good. So that's why I was glad, and I picked this article because it has nothing to do. I don't want anything to be, I'm attacking the gay community. I don't want anything to do with that. I just want to talk about just the actual traditional family. And so this article right here is talking about traditional families and the breakdown of traditional families, and it's not taking into account anything else, just the traditional families, because same-sex marriage is a very new thing when you talk about the thousands of years that the human family has been together. So moving on to the next point that I like here. An economic mobility project analysis shows that among children who start off in the bottom third of income distribution, only 26% with divorced parents move up, compared with 42% born to an unmarried mothers who may marry later, of course, and 50% who grow up with two married parents. I find this stat absolutely astounding. It's a big, bold fact. Look at 26% of divorced parents moved up. So that means only 26% of the children move up in life with divorced parents. However, compared to 42 who are born unmarried, but the mother eventually marries, that moves up from 26 to 42%. That is, just once that mother marries, his chances double of moving up in life. And then it moves up if they just stay married altogether, 50%. So 50% of children, it's a one in two chance of moving up in life and succeeding in life just from a married family. And so here's some other things that this article talks about. In 1970, only 12% of Americans aged 35 to 44 were unmarried. In 2009, 33% were. Many see the increased divorce as an explanation for the change. True, divorce rates spiked in the upward 1970s, but they peaked in the 80s. Most of the change represented people not getting married at all. In 1965, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, I tore that name up, I know that. Then Assistant Labor Secretary won fame and vicious criticism for his report laminating that 24% of black births were to unmarried mothers. By 2009, that rate had risen to 72%. At the rate of unmarried births to all American mothers was 41%. So there's kind of three takeaways on this one. In 1970, 12% of Americans 35 to 44 were unmarried. In 2009, it's up to 33%. Less people are getting married, so that tends to tell me that more children are being born out of wedlock, single-parent households compared to the 1970s. So again, the breakdown of that family, again, which goes back to it almost doubles your chance of success of being with an actual married family. Children do. And then here it says many see increased divorce as an explanation for this change, and that's true. And I got some facts here. Let me see. Let me pull that up really quick. Here we go. So we got I'm kind of in the way a little bit, but it goes from 1860 all the way down here in the bottom corner that you can't see, all the way to 2010. And it's true. I mean, there was a huge spike, but that was right after World War II, where everybody was getting married because they were off to war, and they all divorced really quick. But even then, even at the divorce rate, with the marriage rate the highest it's ever been, the divorce rate still wasn't the highest. It peaked out in 1981, was the highest with our divorce rate in 1981. But as you can see, the trend of marriage is almost, it's been cut in a fourth. 1/4 of the people are getting married less than they were in the 80s. So it's been a dramatic drop in who actually gets married and who gets divorced. So that tends to believe that there's less married families, more kids being had out of wedlock, and single parent families. And as you can see from that very last statistic that they were talking about in the article that I'm gonna pull up right here, and this is a big problem with the inner cities and the black culture, is that, I mean, 24% back in 1965, that's a bad number, because again, look at all marriages now are 41%, and we can see it everywhere. Kids, everybody, that's what everybody talks about, is kids running rampant all around. Well, now in the black community now, it's at 72%. I mean, going back to chances of succeeding are at 50% for married and not married, and 22% for not married. I mean, it's just showing that your chances of really getting ahead in life are just really cut down. So I believe that those are the two main things that are really destroying our culture, and I think these are leading to these mass shootings. These kids are raised by single family homes, so parents got to go out and work. You got to work. So if you're a single parent, you have to work. You can't raise kids by not working. I mean, yes, there's all these government assistant entitlements and all these things, but you can't. How are you gonna? You can't provide for your family. So these kids are being raised essentially on their own, on the internet, on their own. There's all these different things that are plaguing. And the last thing, I believe, another point, is the state of the mental health in America. Over 44 American adults have a mental health condition. 44 million adult Americans have some sort of mental health issue. If that is not a giant red flag, I don't know what is. We need to really hone in on mental health. Rate of youth experiencing mental health condition continues to rise. That's an appalling statement right there. Look at all especially the mass shooters, the ones that do the true blue horrific mass shootings. They're all younger kids, younger youth. So these youth are growing in their mental illness, and it's not being regulated, and they just continue to go. And then look what happens with the family breakdowns, with the technology, with all these things that I mentioned before. I think this is all playing into these mental illnesses and depression and whatever other things are going on in their heads, and it's spiraling out of control, and they can't control themselves, and these things are happening. More Americans are insured and accessing care. That's a good thing. However, but many Americans experiencing mental health conditions still report having an unmet need. 1 in 5, or 9 million adults who are receiving help still don't feel like they're getting the proper care. So even though you've got 9 million adults receiving the care, they're still not quite where they want to be. They're still not feeling healthy enough. Mental health workforce shortage remains, and that's a huge topic. We need to get more mental health out there. I mean, look at the homeless. I talked about the homeless yesterday. There's something like 22% of the 1.7 million homeless have some type of mental health illness. We need mental health. We need it in this country. That's what we need to be talking about. We need to help these kids. We need to stay married. We need to keep the family structure together. Raise these children the right way. Get off the internet. Go play. Go socialize. And get the mental health we need. I can't stress on that enough. Okay, now I'm going to move on to kind of what are we going to do as conservatives. So we talked about the root problem of what is causing these shootings and these just the horrific deaths. And these shootings can go past the mass shootings. I mean, we could talk about Chicago. Chicago, and the demographics of the shootings that happen daily in Chicago is in the black communities. And again, when you've got what was that percent rate? I believe it was in the 79% rate, 72% rate of single of single mothers. Again, there's no family structure. So look at it, it correlates. No family structure, violence. Violence is rampant. We're at 44% altogether in America, and look at our violence in guns and shootings. It's rampant. So it kind of correlates. So that's my opinion based on the data. Now, what are we going to do to correct these gun laws? Or what, we have to come up with some kind of solution, right? Conservatives always blame Democrats that oh, they don't have any answers, they don't have any solutions. But right now, neither do we. All we're talking about is no red flag laws, which I agree, no red flag laws. That infringes on so many of our constitutional rights. We cannot have it. But what kind of solutions do we have? What can we do? Here's my thought. When I hear bipartisan, the only thing I ever hear is that Republicans gave in and the Democrats got everything they want. So here's my thoughts on some solutions that we can actually do for real, true gun reform, and it's a true bipartisan thing. No red flag laws. That cannot happen. We need to get rid of those laws. So there's got to be give and take. If you talk about bipartisan, there has to be true blue give and take. Bipartisan doesn't mean Democrats get to put in regulations. If you want more regulations, you've got to give Republican conservatives some more. So here's kind of my solution and my answers. I agree it should be harder to get a gun, stricter background checks. There should be no loopholes. You should go through a full-blown background check. Why? It's not hurting anybody. I'll go through a background check. I have no problem with it. And if you have a problem going through a thorough background check to get a weapon, then you probably shouldn't have a weapon. Sorry to say it. Not only background checks, we need to do training, right? You should have to go through some kind of training course. I know you have to test. Here in California you do. It's a quick little paper test. But what's wrong with having to go and take a test and maybe doing some kind of practical shooting that you understand the mechanics of a gun and how to use a gun to get a gun? The other thing is mental health. You should have to go get tested. I'm totally for this. Why would any conservative be against this? If you have no mental health issues and you are a perfectly normal, healthy human being, why not, right? You need to do this. We talk about mental health as one of the biggest problems, and I've heard that all through Republican forums and talking with fellow Republicans and conservatives, that mental health is the issue. Okay, well, if mental health is the issue, then you need to go through a mental health check and get it cleared so you can get a card. And then I'm going to come back to the last point on what us as conservatives need to give. So doing these things should allow rightful gun owners to be able to conceal carry in the United States of America. If I go through a thorough background check, if I go and get tested and do a practical test, a written test, so I can show that I know how to use a firearm. I understand the different types of firearms between a rifle, a shotgun, a pistol, that I can show proficiency, that I can do that. And I've cleared the medical background check, and I'm mentally stable, so I'm not going to go out and do a mass shooting based on the requirements to get the gun. I should be giving a card that I can conceal carry in the United States of America. And that's the compromise. That is a true blue bipartisan agreement. Not, oh, we're going to sign red flag laws into law. That's not bipartisan. That's the Democrats getting everything they want. And what do Republicans get out of that? What do conservatives get? Nothing. We get nothing. So listen, I'm all for stricter background checks. Let's get background checks. I'm for practical testing, shooting, showing that I know how to use every type of gun. And I will go through a mental evaluation to show that I am not crazy. And at the end of that day, you are going to give me a license so I can carry, protect my family, and from any other insane person trying to shoot people. I at least have the chance to defend myself rather than hide and cower and just hope that this guy doesn't find me hiding in this corner with my family and blow me away. That's a true blue bipartisan agreement. So let me know what you guys think. The last thing I do think with, okay, so this is going to happen if we do get this concealed carry. I believe you're going to have to carry some kind of liability insurance. And the liability insurance is obviously for you're carrying a pistol around. There's no difference in car insurance or anything else. But that to me is a true blue bipartisan agreement that we will go through more thorough background checks. It's not infringing on anybody's Second Amendment right, because guess what? If you can't pass a background check, you don't need a gun. If you can't clear a mental evaluation, then you shouldn't own a gun. All conservatives are screaming that it's mental illness. So if you can't pass the mental illness test, you shouldn't get it. But again, if you can pass these, you should get your license to be able to carry a firearm and protect yourself and your family against any loony that does decide to pull this kind of craziness. Again, though, we're probably going to have to pay some kind of liability insurance to carry that pistol around. And if we get that license, we're going to have to carry some kind of insurance. And I'm okay with that. So I believe that's a true blue bipartisan agreement. Let me know what you guys think. So I believe I touched on the root of the problem, what's causing some of these problems. I believe we need to get the families back together. We need to get faith back into our country. Listen, I'm not even a religious man. I'm starting to go to church. I need to get into church more because that's what our country was founded on. And it's kind of hypocritical of me to sit there and say that, oh, I believe in what this country is founded on. And I don't even really go to church myself. So I need to start getting back into church and going to church and learning the true values of what this country was founded on. But I believe that's part of the problem, and I need to go fix that myself. And that's a true bipartisan agreement, not red flag laws. And that's what I got for you. Common sense. These are common sense things. None of these are far right, far left, but this is just common sense talking about real policies. This is sitting down and talking across party lines of, okay, you want more testing, more backgrounds, more this and that. Okay, but you got to give something for us. Conservatives want concealed carry. Every conservative I've talked to, any gun owner I've talked to, wants to be allowed to protect themselves. The bad guys have the guns. They don't follow the laws to begin with. I follow the laws. That's why I don't bring a pistol with me wherever I go, even though I want to every single day, because I don't feel safe. The criminals, they have the weapons. I feel unsafe not being able to protect my family, and it drives me absolutely crazy. So that's a true bipartisan agreement. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Let me know what you think. I love you guys, and I love this country. Talk to you tomorrow.